There are some fine houses in Hawke's Bay though, and here's a grand and gracious one designed by John Scott for the Pattersons of Waipawa. There was an old homestead here once, surrounded by verandas, and the house looked out under the eaves in the classic way. It was burnt to the ground one night in 1966. This new house lies somewhere between the traditional homestead and the strident object in the landscape. Here's the cleared domain of the homestead with the English trees and the cropped lawn. But the house is not verandaed at the sides like homesteads usually are. It's open at the end like a whare. Open at both ends. It looks beyond the domain, out into the less cultivated countryside. You might see it as New Zealand's Arcadian villa. Not far away, on the edge of Havelock North, is the house of Peggy and Ian MacPhail. It looks out like the Patterson house, but it's perched on the confines of its plot like a bird's nest. The architect, John Scott, is here too. Peggy, when you go into this house, you walk straight into the heart of it. It's very compact.
Right.
I wondered if you asked your architect for it to be like that.
Well, on the farm, we had our kitchen away from the dining room, and I wanted the living room and the dining room all in one, so that when the family came home, and I was sent to the kitchen to cook a meal, I would be all part of the house.
Did you have a clear idea that of what John was giving you?
No idea at all. In fact, we never got a plan from him at all, until we went to a hotel, and he brought out a paper napkin, and I said, John, can I have a plan of the house? And he said, but you've got lots of ideas. And I said, no, I want to see an actual plan of the house. So he whipped out a paper napkin and sketched it on the napkin, and that was our plan of the house.
That's not quite fair. We did have plans, but
well, John had.
It was very hard to imagine what the interior was going to be like. And so this is what John sketched on the paper napkin.
John, you obviously care for architectural history. What did you see in the MacPhails' lives to work off when you were designing their house?
My grandfather, he was a Scotchman. And he was another one. And akin to that other part of me, which was part Maori, there's no much difference between the Scotch and the Maori in terms of that clan tribe thing, you know? So virtually, Ian and I never talked about anything, really. But we never ever discussed anything, ever, other than some of these things he talked about a while ago. But somehow we had a rapport, and just Peggy did all the noise. She made all the noise, and she became the mouthpiece for all of us, you know what I mean?
Nonsense.
We did.
You've had another house built for the Apatu family out in the mountains 50 miles east of Waihuru. And it's a very different sort of place from here. What lay behind your design there at Namatia?
The topography, high country, bloody awful climate, windswept, fantastic changes of light and all this sort of thing. But when you work in that sort of environment or that sort of country, shelter's the essence. If the view's there, you get it there, it doesn't matter what you do. But the big thing is to be able to undo your saddle with the fingers that will undo the buckles and not freeze on you or get cold, that sort of thing. So the generally the bosom of a building once you get in. The other one is that hot drink sort of thing. So when you come home or when you start to introduce yourself or into the comfort of these sorts of places, especially in those sorts of environments.
It's a very distinctive shape, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's really sort of locked in there. How did the shape come? Did it come out of the country that it was in? Or?
Yeah, partly. If you look on the horizons, it's a series of pinnacles, fairly close, up to within about 10 miles, and then you're getting up to 30 or 40 miles until you get into the Ruapehu Tonguru area. These pinnacles tend to repeat themselves in different sorts of forms, almost like large nipples and smaller ones, and that sort of thing. So, and then thinking back in terms of this volcanic form thing, that this country had been, how can it be, the result of a series of eruptions over maybe 30,000 years, and the latest one being around about 2,000 years ago with Lake Taupo. The idea started to gel then is to get this enclosure relevant to this courtyard that we're sitting at the moment by exploding the middle out like a volcano, so the pieces that dribble on the fringes of this pyramid tend to represent partly, depends on how you kid yourself in this respect. I think it's a matter of kidding. It's the lava flows, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
John Scott was a member of group architects in Auckland in the early 50s. Since then, he's maintained his own line, as regional architectural styles have developed around Auckland and Christchurch and Wellington. The architectural pacemakers have towed a jet stream of like souls, opportunists and mimics. But for the last few years, the very principles that lay behind the work of most architects, the principles of modern architecture, have been heavily attacked. It's time to look at a new wave of architects, at people who are plundering history or dreaming up buildings with no clients in mind at all, at people who even see architecture as a provocative act.